and roll.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Limited Resources. This is episode number 235. My name is Marshall. I'm one of your Limited Resources, and joining me, and we'll wait a minute on that one. I've got a special guest host for you this week, but before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about CardKingdom.com. They are your place to find everything you need magical. Booster packs, singles, you need a few cards to fill out that last standard deck. Maybe you're looking for something for your commander deck if you like to get together with your friends and do that. Or if you're like me, you like to get together with your friends and booster draft, you need some sealed product. You gotta buy some boxes. And Card Kingdom is a fantastic place to do that. We know that there's a lot of choices. We understand that. There's a lot of good choices. Let's just be honest about it. But that doesn't mean that one isn't one. There's got to be one that you haven't tried yet, and it's probably worth trying out. CardKingdom.com. Cannot recommend them highly enough. They ship quickly, they stand by their product, and they have very reasonable prices. That's just a few of the reasons why we love them here on Limited Resources. Okay, I'd like to introduce my special guest host here. He's been on the show before, and it was really one of our most popular shows, and I'm very happy to have back Richard Hagan on the show. Rich, welcome to Limited Resources.
Marshall, thank you so much for having me. Great to be back again. It was a real thrill and an honor the first time around. I'm sure it's going to be every bit as thrilling and honorable the second time around.
Yeah, so basically what the deal is, Rich and I covered the Pro Tour. This is Pro Tour Journey into Nixon, Atlanta, Georgia. The following weekend, though, was also a GP, and Rich and I decided to stay and hang out together during the week, and then we're going to cover the GP when it comes time for the weekend. But I figured, look, I've got Rich here. I might as well do the podcast with him. So I gave Brian the day off, and it's Rich and I doing the show. Now, we've got a whole lot to talk about, including one very exciting thing, I think, is I asked on Twitter, and for those of you that were following, you already know this, well, kind of an ask me anything for Rich. It's my belief that Rich is one of the least understood Magic personalities out there, and I like to give him a little bit of a platform to get to know, so that you guys can get to know the Rich that I know, which isn't necessarily the same person that you see on Pro Tour coverage. I mean, it's still him, don't get me wrong, but it's certain aspects of him that have been exaggerated, and there's a lot more there than meets the eye. Before we jump into all that, though, you know what to do, right, Rich?
Is it the moment? Hey, that's unreal. You have a real pack. I thought you had a sound effect for the open the pack noise. You just
no, this is real.
Button.
This is real.
Oh, my God.
And I really do smell it.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. Let's take a look at our booster pack. We have Returned Reveler. So that's the 1/3 that mills. You're not that excited.
We're not excited by that, and I like mill.
Yeah.
Oh, my
speaking
God.
of mill, Countermand.
Yeah.
Another pretty unexciting one.
No.
We got a Thinker.
Yeah.
Pensive Minotaur. Another just unexciting card. It's fine. It's just unexciting.
Yeah, I have no problem with Pensive Minotaur at all because I love red black.
You like that. But you're not looking
I'm
at
not
it
looking
for
to pick
now.
it,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Armament of Nyx. This is a card that's sort of fluctuated for me. I haven't really quite figured out where it sits yet. It's down a little bit from where I had it once. I never had it that high, though.
It often feels like a card that doesn't quite do what you want it to do. Whichever way round you're using it, you kind of wish you were getting better value out of using it the other way round.
Right.
So
here's a card I like, Font of Fertility.
Yeah, it's obviously completely fine. I am not a
This
big
is not a
green
Rich
player.
Hagan card.
No, it really is. Well, ironically, in Constructed, it kind of is. Any kind of rampant growth, I will happily play green if it means doing 6 drops on turn 3 and 4.
Okay, but in Limited, not so much.
But not so much. I am not a Fatties fan.
No.
Like Golden Hydox is so far away from my wheelhouse, it's not even real.
By the way, Golden Hydox, not a welcome guest on this podcast. If you look at the artwork for that, it looks like he may have just slain Elmer. And Elmer, he's got a way of getting himself into trouble, and it looks like he's done it again. Let's take a look at Rotted Hulk.
Even better idea. Let's not.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Now here's a card that Rich Hagan would like. It's Blade Tusk Boar.
In a big way.
Yeah.
And my only problem with taking it is that in a lot of packs, there is another red card that you don't really want to pass to your left. But the Blade Tusk Boar is the card that you will, a lot of the time, I feel you have to take. And I'm like, please don't go into red on my left because, I'd actually like some red coming back. I love the Boar. It's super good.
Boar has performed very well. And you know what's interesting? I've moved up a couple of cards, specifically Bronze Sable, out of my sideboard as a card I'm much more interested in having hanging around just because it blocks this thing. Yeah. Cruel Feeding is next. This is an unexciting one. I think that my big knock on Cruel Feeding is that it's +1/+0, so it doesn't make your creatures win combat. It can make them trade up, which is not exciting.
Let's try and not lose.
Yeah. And it's in black, not a traditionally heroic color. It just doesn't have a lot going on. This is one that I've had a tough time getting a hand on. Mortal Obstinacy. So this is the 1 white mana enchant creature you control. Creature gets +1/+1, and whenever the enchanted creature deals combat damage to a player, you can sack Mortal Obstinacy to destroy an enchantment. I have had my Humbler of Mortals killed by Mortal Obstinacy.
Yeah.
And while my opponent needed to have a flyer to make that happen, they did. It was like an Akron Skyguard. They got a +1/+1. They hit me for 3 because of the +1/+1 from Obstinacy, and then they're just like, 1 mana, kill your 6-drop. Now, probably approaching Magical Christmas Land there.
Only to an extent, though, because that card works really well in blue-white heroic, and you are going to have flyers there. There are just like a Nimbus Naiad or something, and stuff. There are things that are going to just get out there and nip across. And
that's absolutely true. That probably is the deck for it. So anyway, it's a card to keep your eye out on. I don't think it's unplayable. I don't think it's great. Ooh.
Are we into uncommon land? It's the Starfish.
It's the Starfish.
Sigiled
Starfish definitely has proven itself. We were hoping, at least I was hoping, that it would be Looter-esque. And while it's not quite as good as a Merfolk Looter, in my opinion, it is excellent still. And Scry 1 every turn adds up very quickly. And, man, that thing blocks a 2/2 for a while.
I was going to say, let's not forget, Merfolk Looters died to breathing near them. Right? And Sigiled Starfish sits there going, you want to shock me? No.
Nope.
You're going to have to, lightning strike my Starfish.
Right. I've had people play Starfall on the Starfish, and
exactly.
I was like, that was correct. They needed to get that off the table.
Quite.
But I'm quite happy trading my 2-drop for their 5-drop removal spell.
Yeah, Sigiled Starfish feels like the final act in the, by the way, boys and girls, Scry is actually quite powerful campaign.
Yeah.
People have gone through the block and there's this thing called Scry for newer players. Obviously, experienced players know Scry's bonkersly good. Mm-hmm. But as the set's gone on, Scry, you say, people are playing temples that is, a green-blue temple in their red-white deck. Why are they doing that? Because it says Scry on it. And then eventually you get to this point, it's like, do you have any idea what the Starfish does? If you don't get that Scry's good now, it's over.
Right.
You're just never going to appreciate Scry. I love the Starfish. I'm still picking Bladetusk Boar, though.
Okay.
So far.
Those are our top 2.
Those are our top 2 commons, for sure.
Consign to Dust.
Yeah.
Has overperformed for me.
Oh, has it?
Yeah,
Okay.
2 and a green, instant, and it's a disenchant effect, or a naturalize is probably more accurate for these days, but it also has Strive for 2 and a green. So if you get up to 6 mana, you can blow up 2 enchantments and or artifacts. And
you've made that happen.
Yes, I have. And even then, you just fire it off for 3 sometimes. I think the standard for this block currently, and for a while actually, has been you're okay to run 1 disenchant in the main deck. You're okay with that. Maybe there's something a little better you could do, but you're not sad to have run 1. Running the second starts to get a little sketchy. Out of all of them, this is the one I want the most.
Okay.
That says a lot, right? It's not. It's the top of a particular heap. It's not amazing, but it does have the ability to get 2-for-1s, and it doesn't ask a lot of you to do it, and it comes in a frame that you probably already want to run anyway.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
Agent of Erebos. This guy sucks.
He really does.
Yeah, it's obviously not made for us, for us limited players. It's something else.
Sure.
All right, now here's one that I know BDM likes quite a bit. Oh, no, sorry, this is a different one. This one's Solidarity of Heroes. I thought we were looking at Colossal Heroics, but it's not. So this one's, BDM does not like this one. It's 1 and a green, instant Strive, and you get to double the number of +1/+1 counters. This card is just basically unplayable.
Yeah, as you say, look at all the work you have to do.
Right, setup cost, we call it. Yeah, too high.
Next to nothing. Okay. Are we at the rare yet?
Yeah, we're at the rare.
Okay, am I about to just blow everything away and just go, I'll have the rare, thanks, boss?
Yes, you are.
Go on then, what am I getting?
Silence the Believers. Thank
Well,
you
that was
so
a fun
much.
Crack-a-Pack.
That was.
I'll just set these ones over here,
Yeah,
and
we'll kick off with the Silence
Yeah.
the Believers.
Which, by the way, is a great name for a card.
It
since
is.
Silence the Doubters is the real phrase. So to have this weird inverse thing in black, it's very clever.
It's also a savage artwork. This thing's just getting, that's blood.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nasty. But Silence the Believers, it's somewhere in the top 5 cards in the whole set. I don't know where exactly it falls. I haven't looked at it in that way yet, but it is amazing. 2 black, exile a creature and all auras attached to it, and it even has Strive for 2 and a black. This is not remotely, as they say.
Yes.
Doesn't happen that often. You know, I actually don't like it when people say not remotely close, not close, unless they really mean it. People, sometimes tend to use hyperbole a little too much in the Magic world, but I do believe that this one is Silence of Believers, not close.
Yeah, and I think Journey into Nyx is much better at having close picks. It's something that Zach and I did at Pro Tour Born of the Gods. We looked at the first pick at everyone in the draft viewer, and it was pretty wretched because it was God, Planeswalker, God, Planeswalker, Planeswalker, gigantic Breemaz, and so on. And we were like, yeah, actually, there was only but one of the 8 picks that were close.
Right.
But I think Journey into Nyx has a lot more going on when you open a pack. You're not just, where's my rare? Oh, thank you, that's the end of that.
Right.
But here it was. Go us.
Okay, we've got a lot to talk about here, so let's set the Crack-a-Pack aside. We're kind of blessed with a fairly straightforward pick here, I think, but I'm okay with that because you and I have been having a lot of really deep and interesting chats over the last few days, and we were going to talk about something else for the show, and we just looked at each other at one point and we're like, let's just scrap that and talk about this, because this is really important when it comes to Magic development and that kind of thing. And Rich, I'm going to kind of hand the mic to you here for a few minutes, because I know you have a lot to say about it, but people will notice that there was some lovely piano music that was playing over me while I was giving my intro. I don't normally play music like that. They were probably raising their eyebrows like, what is that? Like, why is he playing music? First, where did that music come from? And don't you dare talk yourself down, because I will just take the mic right back and do it up again. And then also, I want you to link that through for our first stage of topics here.
Okay. Well, it came from me about 20 minutes ago. That was me live on a Steinway grand piano in the lobby of the Omni Hotel here in Atlanta. Because in a past life, I think everyone knows that I've been an entertainer all my life. I've been playing the piano since I was 4. And I've played in a lot of 5-star hotels in London's Park Lane, doing stuff like you heard at the beginning of the show. But the reason for bringing it in to this, because where is there a link between basically what was a 12-bar blues in C, for those who care about such things, and Magic development as players, which is what we're concerned with here, is that...
What's the link?
On that piano, there are 88 keys, 88 different notes.
By the way, watching you play that was A, incredible, and B, very intimidating. I'm just like looking at that like, wow, there's a lot going on here.
Yeah. So it turns out, I think I said on the last show that I used to teach jazz piano to people. And so I've got 88 notes. In theory, I've got my 10 fingers. I can choose to play any number of those notes that I can reach. There's a sort of physical limit to it. And I can play any of those in any combination over a period with rhythm and pressure to give tone and structure and so on. And jazz, or improvisation, what it looks like from the outside, if you don't know what's going on...
Which is me, by the way.
Sure. Is, in a very real sense, magical. It is something from nothing. There was silence, suddenly there was sound, and the sound made coherent sense and induced pleasure or interest or excitement or weirdness or discomfort or whatever. And it appears like that is being plucked from thin air. And the reality is that what's happening is that I and all the other piano players like me, who, have been playing forever, are going down very well-trodden neural pathways with muscle memory of the shape that my left hand makes to make certain chords and sounds and feels and vibes and so on. And the fact that I know that 0.46 seconds after the last note is the correct time to hit the next beat on this finger to do that and so on. And where it ties into Magic is that when you talk to most very good Magic players, a lot of them find it very hard to explain what is really happening. And they just kind of say, well, it's obvious. It's not close,
Right.
in fact. But they don't say, here's why it's not close. Or they're often not able to, because they've been doing it for so long and evaluating 14 cards in the space of 40 seconds based on the 28 previous drafts they've done, plus their expectation of the player to their right who they know, and the left who they know, and the record they need to make the top 8 of the Pro Tour, which they know, that they don't even think consciously about all the factors that go into the choices they make. And one of the things that crack a pack is a 40-second draft choice done in 20 minutes, which allows you to explore why a particular card is not great, why this is a signal to your left. It is a wonderful teaching tool because the world goes by very, very quickly, and what I played in that first 2 minutes of the show went by very, very quickly, and I don't know for sure, but I would imagine I would have played way in excess of 1,000 notes during that 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, whatever. So how could I possibly have chosen all of those whilst actually doing it? And the answer is you learn to slow yourself down to the point at which you understand the choices you're making.
Slow yourself down.
You slow right down, and you come to understand why you do the things you do. And if you can do that, then it's easy to trust the things you do because you've heard yourself say, I know that I wish to get from C to F, and I know that F is the subdominant of C, and I know to get there that there are many intervals that will work very nicely, because I have played these tens of thousands of times, and I know that on the way to C, if I play a B flat, it will foreshadow that I'm moving to F. Now, that may have meant nothing to you at all, Marshall. I've no
Correct,
idea.
it did not.
That's fine. I feel like that sometimes, watching a John Finkel or a Dennis Rashid talk about draft picks at the Draft Viewer. I sit there at the news desk at the PT, and they're explaining, you know what, I think that third pick, a Crone Skyguard, suggested to me, given that the rare and one of the uncommons was missing, suggested to me that I was going to be in white, but I was concerned because I know that Owen likes, and I'm like, what? Slow down, slow down. And I watch those things back, and then you can understand them. But one of the interesting things, and one of the reasons I wanted to do that, quite apart from just having some fun with everyone at home, is that when I play the piano with all those choices to make, I have no fear. Because I'm a performer, fundamentally, and an entertainer, there is no stage, no number of viewers, no number of listeners that terrifies me, that invigorates me. If you put me in front of 1 million viewers on the Pro Tour stream, I think that's wonderful. The day
Which has happened, by the way.
Oh, yeah. And the day we have 10 million, I'll think, great, where's 100 million? Because there isn't a number that scares me in that way. But in Magic, I am scared all the time. All the time. I am confident in the things that I am good at, but I am ashamed of some of the things that I am bad at. And being ashamed of the things you're bad at is a really terrible way to learn to get better.
Right.
Because you close off and it becomes very, very difficult to improve because other things, like self-preservation, become more important to you.
How do you mean self-preservation in this way?
Well, at its very simplest.
I mean, you're not talking about surviving, right? You mean
no.
like mental...
I mean self-well-being.
Uh-huh.
I mean, let's see now. I self-harm, Marshall, which you probably didn't know.
I did not
I
know
hurt
that.
myself on a pretty regular basis. Not in a sort of
right.
devastating off-to-hospital way, but, you know, there aren't many days go by when I'm not actually physically bleeding. And that's pretty grim.
Ow.
Yeah, I know. It hurts a bit, actually. I should do something about that, I think. But the thing is that I could open a pack tonight. We could go and draft. 7 people waiting for an 8th. I could be the 8th, or I could take a step back and be the 9th. If I'm the 9th, I will not get the first pick wrong. I will not get the second pick wrong. I will not build the wrong number of lands. I will not play wrong land, wrong goblin, your turn. None of those things will happen to me and inflict damage on my self-esteem as a Magic player.
Right.
That's if I'm 9th. If I'm 8th, every single one of those things may very well happen to me. And I don't like that feeling. I hate it. I want to make my mistakes in private because, admittedly, I'm in a slightly odd place, as you are. We're both very public figures within the Magic world. But although pros know that I respect them, they all know I admire them incredibly for many reasons, not least their willingness to put themselves on the line time after time after time, where someone else who's really smart is trying to make them, brackets also really smart, to look dumb in front of 1 million people. Because that's an unspoken thing, right? Jamie Park against Patrick Chapin in the top 8. Ajani mentor of Kiora being the bubble creature when Chapin had that attack. And it's like, now, was that for real? Or was he just doing this next leveling a guy who's in his 3rd Pro Tour top 8? Was he setting out to make Jamie Park look dumb in front of 1 million people? Or was he himself screwing up? One of those two things is probably true. And yet they all come back time after time, willing to put themselves in one of those chairs. So they know I admire them, but I would love them to recognize me as not a gibbering idiot when it comes to Magic the Gathering. So when I'm sitting doing a coverage draft, utterly shattered after a Pro Tour on a Sunday night in a hotel lobby, and Joe Demestrio, who I think is a very, very fine young man and player and a great guy, and someone I would consider a friend, when he comes by and sees that I have Karametra in play, I want to gouge my eyeballs out in shame. Because I know it's a terrible card.
Right.
But I wanted to play with it, and I don't play very much. I don't have the time to get the reps in. So when I'm relaxing, I'm like, hey, that's a god. You know what? Gods don't come around very often. I know they're not very good. I wonder how many plains and forests I can get out of my deck. See whether I can do something with it. But when he comes by, I then see that Karametra through the eyes of the 19-year-old top 100 player in the world pro, who is going to walk away from that table going, wow, he may be able to talk, but he sure can't play Magic.
And he's going to go to his friends and do the whole thing where he's like, yeah, I walked by, Rich was playing
Oh
this
my God.
card.
And he probably isn't.
No, he's
he
not.
probably doesn't care at all. No. And guess what, everyone at home? Those people you think are going to do that to you at F&M draft, they're not. They don't care what you're picking. They don't care what mistakes you make. Even if they say to their friends, hey, guess what so-and-so's doing? Do you know why they're doing it? It's because they're every bit as scared as you are of being the guy who's wrong. And you have to try and get past that abject terror of looking stupid, because the greatest thing Magic ever did, the trick of Magic, is it lets you define yourself through the cards. And if you allow yourself to be defined as a human being by your ability to correctly sacrifice a font of fertility at the right moment, that is not a happy place for a human being to be, and you have to divorce yourself from that. You look at all the successful players. They are successful human beings first, and successful Magic players second. And they learn to get their, I was about to use a word there, they learn to get their stuff together, and then Magic falls into place.
Right.
Because you're ready for the success that you finally discovered you deserve, rather than trying to avoid the failure and abject misery that you secretly feel is your lot in life.
Yeah, and that's a big, so, you know, what Rich is really getting at here is an important life skill, and it's an important Magic skill. And I was lucky. I went through these things with poker before picking up Magic. And that was really big for me, because those same tracks that you just mentioned are always the same. I can't believe this guy played this hand this way. You know, when it comes to poker, a lot of times you don't have to show your hand. It's sort of like, you know, if you're playing Magic and you make a bad play, but then the game ends and you just sort of shuffle your hand back in and they never really knew, right? Or you can lie. You know, people lie all the time, and they'll be like, oh, yeah, you know, I have the 2-lander. If I would have drawn any land, I would have been fine. And that's just not true, you know. And in poker, though, there are times when the cards get flipped up on the table face up, and, you know, you'll see that from people that are less experienced, that they're just like super, like I've seen people, because the part of the rules of poker are that when it comes to the end of the hand, in order to win the pot, you got to turn your hand over, and if there's two players in there still. And I've seen players throw away hands that had a chance to win because they didn't want to turn their hand over and show how badly they had played. And it's like, not only did that cost them money, but in Magic, when we go back over to Magic, since there's very rarely actual money on the line, only really at the Pro Tour and late in a GP is when you start to get to those moments. But, for the vast majority of Magic players, it's not a question of money. It's pride.
It's a question of something much more important than money.
Something that people tend to hold more near and dear, for sure. But with poker, it's actually both.
Of
right?
course.
And so, but the thing is that not only is what you said a few minutes ago, Rich, true, which is that it's hard to be a good person. Like, it's hard to be well-rounded. It's hard to be happy. Like, if you're falling for those things. It's also just in a very practical way hard to get good at Magic, right? I mean, that's the funny thing. Like, I really like the example that you used about when you played Karametra, because I did the same thing in the draft before that, but I played Kruphix. I gave Kruphix an F in our set review. I opened it or whatever, and I didn't take it. But I wheeled it, and I was in blue-green, and I could have taken some mediocre nonsense, not really going to sideboard it type card, or Kruphix. I took Kruphix, and when I built my deck, I could have played some 23rd card instead of Kruphix, and I said, you know what, hell with it. I'm going to try out Kruphix. Like, I am willing to be wrong. Right? Like, a lot of the shows that we do to follow up a set review, Rich, are ones where we reevaluate what we know now. And I'm perfectly willing to look at Kruphix and say, there was something I didn't see here. This card's better than I thought. Or it's not, right? There's an easy way to figure that out. And so I ran it in my deck, and the same thing happened. Cuneo showed up, or some friends or whatever from the PT. And I'm just like, but the difference is I don't have that. I was able to get over that when I was doing the poker thing, and I willfully showed it off. Because I have two tracks that come in my mind when I do that. The first one is, if they think that I'm honestly, earnestly running Kruphix, and that I think that at the top 8 of a GP or a PTQ that's what I would do, then they just don't know me, right? And it doesn't take much to figure out that I don't think that Kruphix is a very good Magic card. But the other track, though, and the one that I like, is that you don't get a chance to run Kruphix very often. This will probably be the only time I get to play it. And I want to know what it is good for, if it's good for anything. And so this is a side draft at the PT. It's not some big high-stakes thing. We're playing for rares or whatever. It's not a big deal. And I actually feel just fine showing it to them, because it shows that I'm willing to push boundaries, and I'm willing to take one for the team to actually get first-hand knowledge of what's going on with the card. I mean, at the end of the day, Kruphix, I could probably just stick with my guns and say that card sucks, right? But still, I did want to know. And, I had a game where I went off against Rashad. I stacked up a ton of mana, and I top-decked Interpret the Signs, and I drew 5, and I dumped my whole hand on the table, and Kruphix was a creature, and everything went awesome. And that's a fun story as well.
Yeah.
But, the key is, you have to have that. You have to have gone through those reps and be willing to say, oops, I screwed that up, or I made a poor decision, or I decided to do this for a reason, and it was wrong, and I'm willing to accept that, right? And I'm okay with that. Not that it's a shameful act. It was just wrong, and I'll probably do it wrong again at some point, but that was my decision, and I stuck with it.
Well, let's be honest. Being wrong is our natural state. As human beings, we're wrong all the time about everything, and then very occasionally we do something right. Like we correctly fall into bed and manage to fall asleep, which is an awesome achievement. When you see little babies trying to learn to walk, every time they fall over, they don't go, I am covered in shame. They're covered in other things, but I'm covered in shame. I am an abject failure as a human being. No, they try and stand up again, because no one's taught them the air quotes value of shame and failure. There is only route to success. And that's a wonderful thing. I want to validate what you just said, by the way, by mentioning that the other person I know who spends all their time saying, I will draft literally any card in the set ever and see if I can play with it, is Ben Stark, who's one of the great drafters of all time. If you look at his Magic Online account in any given format, this is a man who will actually take a moment to consider whether Messenger Speed belongs in his deck or not, even though it never does, right? He will always do that. And like you say, you have to find a way to divorce your emotional feelings about being right or wrong from simply getting better. And I think it's a linguistic thing. Look, the thing I love most about your show, Marshall, and this is not about to be a compliment or anything or terribly gushy, the thing I love, it's actually to you, listeners, it's the fact that quite clearly, when you listen to a whole bunch of shows, it is very clear that the purpose of the listeners is they want to get better as a group. If you say, what's the one defining characteristic of your audience? Improvers. That's who they are. And I just love that. I love the fact that people are always willing on this show to learn. But it's
my kind of people.
Yeah. Because guess what? Learning makes you smarter and better and gives you more chance to win. But when we say we want to be better, there is actually a lot of legalese afterwards, which we never acknowledge. I want to be better, brackets, as long as I don't have to spend too much money. I want to be better, brackets, as long as I don't have to spend too much time. I want to be better, brackets, as long as it doesn't make me a bit of a dick in the way I play the game. So I'm not prepared to do that. I want to be better, brackets, unless I have to cheat to do it, close brackets. Hopefully everyone feels like that, basically. I want to be better, but I would rather go to dinner or do the CNN tour, close brackets. Now, it doesn't invalidate the wanting to be better, but we do all need to understand everything the unspoken we have in brackets. Because when Johnny Manziel says, I want to be better, he means, I want to do nothing else in the universe than become the best quarterback of all time. He's not mucking around. He is not doing the CNN tour. He's either resting or in the gym or getting ready to be the best quarterback in the world. So for you at home, you have your own design on what being better means. Patrick Chapin, let's cut to the chase. Of course he won the Pro Tour because he had all the right cards at the right time, he was with the right team, he did the right testing. But one of the most defining characteristics of this Pro Tour is that 348 people were trying to win the Pro Tour, and one person was trying to win the World Championship. And the one person was Patrick Chapin, which meant while everyone else was busy trying to make day 2 and trying to get to 8-0 and trying to lock up the top 8 and trying to win the Pro Tour, he was just waiting to qualify for the tournament he wants to be in December. He wasn't even looking at Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And that is true at every level. If you're thinking, well, what has this got to do with me? I only draft on Tuesdays and Thursdays at my local store. But if you think about the guys who are at your store, there is the guy who doesn't get out of second gear until game 3 of the final because he happened to get screwed in game 2, so he has to play game 3. And that guy, then it's like wakening the beast. And it's like, yeah, well, I've played in 15 Pro Tours. I think I'd better actually, beat you now. Whereas you're busy going, I'm about to draft. It's Tuesday and here we go. It's the big draft of the week. And you're going to just split the rares at the end of the evening. And it's all about the level of where getting better is for you. And once you understand where that is, you can correctly identify what your goals should be. Because there is nothing worse than thinking, I'm going to be the best Magic player in the world, brackets, but I have band on Tuesday, camp on Thursday, soccer on Friday and Saturday, rugby on Sunday, and God forbid I should ever miss Family Guy on Monday, or whatever it is, right? And I'm certainly someone who has, historically, I can point to 4 times in Magic history where I can, hand on heart, say, I knew how to play Magic. I can look at Invasion Block Constructed, I can look at Scars of Mirrodin Sealed Deck, I can look at Modern Masters Sealed, and I can look at Lorwyn White Weenie Drafting. Those 4 things, I genuinely knew what was going on. So now, when I'm pootling around going Blade Tusk Boar, am I going to play this Font of Ire? Is this Rotted Hulk any good? Boy, oh boy, I look up the mountain and I see, never mind good people, I see the good Rich Hagen looking down at me and saying, my God, you're terrible at Magic.
The one that's put the work in on that particular thing.
Yes.
Yeah, and the kind of work that it takes to stay at that level.
Yes.
Yeah, because you know what I think the brackets that we're talking about here on the show for this episode is I want to be successful, but not if it entails public humiliation or an ego hit, or not if it makes me look like a worse player than I think I am, or any of these things where, you know, I mean, we were talking about it earlier, and what sparked a lot of the conversation was there was a side draft, and one of the players conceded after making a small mistake. And it was a little weird. You know, it was a little bit like, oh, that's a strange concession. And, you know, I was talking to Rich about it just sort of conversationally. And Rich, you really seem to have an idea of what it feels like to be in the shoes of somebody who doesn't want to feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, my first ever coverage draft when I joined the Pro Tour coverage was Aaron Forsyth, the director of R&D, who had, you know, top 8s of Pro Tours, team events and so on. Lost to him, obviously. Then I played a Hall of Famer, Randy Buehler. Obviously, he creamed me from start to finish. And then I played Mike Turian.
Another Hall of Famer.
And shockingly enough, he utterly crushed me. It would be like I'm overweight, and I'm 42. It would be like me playing in the NFL without padding. I wasn't just butchered, I was dismembered.
Sure.
Now, I knew that was going to happen, and that's okay. Because in the NFL with no padding, well, of course, we're all going to end up in hospital.
Right.
What else is going to happen? But where it becomes hard is when they don't have Hall of Fame after their name. They don't have Pro Tour Top 8 after their name. Let's say I'm playing against someone like, I don't know, let's say Marshall Sutcliffe. Mm-hmm. Marshall Sutcliffe's a guy who, you know, he doesn't have any Pro Tour Top 8s, and I know him personally, and I like him, and he's clearly smart, but he's also not someone who, when I go, can I imagine in 6 months' time him with a Pro Tour title? Well, actually, not really. Whereas Zach Hill or Randy Buehler or LSV, obviously, well, yeah, of course I can. So, when I sit down to play a Marshall Sutcliffe, the pressure is on. Because I can't beat Randy in the coverage draft most times, and if I do, that's probably because he got screwed, or flooded, or I sat next to the person who was super casual and just gave me the best deck. So there's no sense of accomplishment when I beat Randy, because I know he's better than I am and always will be, so what does that achieve? If I beat you, let's get personal, I can feel it's possible that was an achievement. I might even, if I was really clever and worked to my absolute peak, have outthought you and outfought you. And I respect you so much as a human being and as a Magic player that is a scalp I can go to bed grinning from ear to ear about. And at F&M for you at home, there is someone at your store. You know where you are on that. Maybe you're that mid-ranking guy who doesn't win F&M every week, doesn't win the draft every week, but is really tough to beat. And suddenly, the apparently meek and mild new player who's always asking for help from everyone is like messing you around and really playing mind games with you because he really wants to beat you. You are the cheese he wants to take down. And so suddenly, if that's the role you're in, and you're playing against that guy that you really want to beat because you think you might just be able to outthink them, part of the reason you want to do that is you sort of want to be them. That means you want their respect. So if you are doing something that demonstrates actually the gulf that is still between you, you're just... God. So let me tell you a story about Modern Masters. This is called "A little knowledge is a dangerous thing," which is a well-known phrase. I went to a European Grand Prix a couple of weeks before going to Vegas, and I was super excited because I knew Modern Masters. I had done the hours, and by done the hours, I eventually built 253 sealed pools before I went to Vegas, and it was my 254th on day one of the GP.
Yeah, we actually had you to talk about that on the show. They can listen to your other episode to hear your preparation. It was extensive.
Yeah, guess what? I made day two. Of course I made day two. There wasn't a way I wasn't going to, realistically. But I went to this European Grand Prix, and I was so excited. Because generally, you know what it's like when a new set comes out and everyone's talking amongst themselves and, hey, Bub, what do you think of this? What do you think of this garden? How do you evaluate Strive? And let's talk Constellation. Do you know what? I don't actually take part in many of those conversations because for the most part, I come from a very humble place because most of my daily work is at a Pro Tour or Grand Prix where I am the 408th smartest man in the room or whatever it turns out to be. And I want to listen, not talk. I want to try and learn. But with Modern Masters, I was so excited about all this cool stuff I knew and had worked out through all this testing. I went and talked with my good friend Simon Gertzen, who's part of the European coverage team, a Pro Tour champion himself. I said, Simon, I'm so excited. I can't wait for Vegas. I'm going to go. I'm going to make day two. I've got this sealed deck down. I know every card. I know every interaction. I'm in the best Magic shape of my life, which, by the way, was, to an extent, true. And I'm someone who needs that enthusiasm and affirmation to drive forward. Because I would not be nearly as excited by, hey, Simon, I'm really excited because I have learnt quite a lot of the cards and I have built a lot of sealed pools and some of them were pretty good, which would also be a fair summation on one level. So we get to the end of the GP, and I've taken Modern Masters packs, which are, of course, like gold dust. They are artifacts of awesome that I am cradling about my person.
They are.
You know. And we go to a well-known fast food establishment. And Simon sits down, and we do a sealed deck exercise. And Simon is one of my dear friends. But he humiliated me in a way I can't remember feeling since I was about 6 years old. Because with every turn, with every tapping of every land, it was like getting slapped in the face. Gently, but firmly. Here is the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, and 17th reason in this game of 4 turns so far why I'm better than you at Magic. By the time we get to turn 8, now here's the 34th and 35th and 36th reason I'm better than you at Magic. Now that I've won the game, I'm going to spend the next 18 turns doing things that you've never seen Magic cards do in your life. Because I want you to understand that you're not just a million miles away from me at Magic. You are universes behind me at Magic. And if you think you understand Modern Masters, Mr. Hagen, this is what good people do with Modern Masters. And then my absolute all-time favourite player, Frank Karsten, who's also on the coverage team.
The tank.
Yeah, comes in. And at this point, Simon's just giggling uncontrollably because he's having the most fun ever. Because he's kicking his boss, let's not forget. You know, I direct the European stream, and he spends all weekend long going, yes, boss, I will do that. I will go. Now I can have my break. Thank you, Mr. Hagen. So, you know, it's well-deserved, this kicking. He's not doing anything wrong at all. But if there's one person in the world of Magic I would like to think thought of me as an okay Magic player, it is Frank Karsten. Because my Magic life would be complete if he ever said to me, you played that pretty well, Rich. You're pretty competent. Instead, what he tends to say to me is things like, yes, that was an interesting line you took there, Rich. Of course, it is possible that you were contemplating the fact that by tapping the second black, leaving yourself out of double black for the Bile Blight that I suspected you had, it would have implied that you didn't have the Bile Blight, and that therefore you were contemplating reducing my 4/4 to a 1/1 on a subsequent attack. And he knows full well I had just incorrectly tapped my mana, right? So I'm sitting there, and I can feel my face flushing. And right now, as I tell you this story, I can feel the despair. I wanted to vomit on the table with the shame of having this Pro Tour champion just
Just
dismantle me. And then this Hall of Famer sitting beside me, just basically giggling at how terrible I was. In a fun way, in a teasing way, they're both dear friends. But I crawled home destroyed that night. And it was the worst Magic experience of my life, by far. And it was because I thought I knew what was going on. And I didn't.
Right. And I think that shows the level of emotion, the level of shame that some people can feel. And it's a stifler, though, right? I mean, how have you, what are the tools that you can use to help overcome that? I had to do it 10 years ago or so, and I remember hearing from professional poker players and reading or whatever that you can't be afraid to make mistakes. And that made sense to me. It didn't necessarily just take that fear off the table, but it gave me the license to try out stuff when I think that the biggest step for me, and tell me if you agree with this, Rich, is time and a place, right? I mean, I will flip switches. A guy that you and I both love, Brian David Marshall, is great at this too. He will go deep in a draft and he will experiment and try things out. He will also stick to the known archetypes and draft a rock-solid deck when he needs to. And he chooses when he wants to do that, when he, back and forth. I mean, if he's playing on Magic Online, maybe he's like, I'm going to try this deck out. I want to try it out. I want to see what it does, and I'm willing to burn these tickets to find out it's not very good. Mm-hmm. Maybe in a coverage draft, he's like, I'm just going to kick the crap out of these guys, and I want to draft a super solid deck that I know is good. And another day, maybe he's, flipping those around. And on a coverage draft, he's like, I just want to do something really crazy and stupid and chromatic core up on something and get all excited about it. And, for me, it's like that with poker as well. If I have a home game that's smaller, I might try a new line that I haven't thought of. When I'm playing in the casino, I'm all business, right? Mm. And so, for Magic, that often translates from playing online or maybe an F&M up to, going up a bit to, say, a PTQ or a GP level where you're not really looking to mess around much. And for me, that really helped me. I said, no, it's okay. I'm confident enough in myself that I can make a mistake in front of other people or try something stupid in front of other people and say, I have a really strong defense for this. I was trying it out for myself because I wanted to know if there was something I didn't know, and this is how I learned that.
Yes.
And other people will just listen to something that other people say or make their mind up, put it in a vault, and just never address it again and say, no, that card sucks. We're done here.
Yeah. Magic is the most complex game ever. Ever. People who play it well are playing it less terribly than other people. It is almost impossible to comprehend how many mistakes everyone makes all the time in a game of Magic. Just within a game, within a match, within a tournament. And that's fine. That's fine. And for me, yes, the trick is to know when you're trying to be good and when the bits in the brackets are kicking in. In my personal case, a lot of the time is, I'd like to be better, bracket, but I'm going to write 393 summaries for the 393 qualified players for Pro Tour Journey into Nix, so that when we're in the booth, we can say, here's Matt Stone, he went 1-3-1 on his Pro Tour debut in 2003 at Boston. So that's 45 hours of this week I'm spending on Magic that isn't spent on getting me as a better Magic player. Now, sometimes, for an insurance salesman listening to this, that's their 40 hours out of the week. They're not getting better at Magic. And it is so important to understand what you're going to put in and what you're looking to take out. And I think the biggest word that you can take with you, and this is not a Magic joke based on a card name, is humility. Because if you look at CFB Pantheon, who put 3 players into the top 8 of the Pro Tour this time around, they are chock full, I think, 6 or 7 Hall of Famers on that team. If you are a Matt Costa or a Matt Sperling or someone like that, you might very well be, certainly Matt Nass, who's a good friend of both of ours, you could point to them and say, if they were looking at themselves, maybe I am the second worst player on my entire 15-man team. How the hell am I ever going to do anything at a Pro Tour? But you don't need to feel like that, because when you're surrounded by support and friends, all that fear goes away. The day after I felt utterly wretched about Magic, this week, I chose to put Dennis Rashid, 2 times top 8 in a year, on my shoulder and talk the draft with me.
This is a draft that you and I did last night.
I showed him every pick that I wanted to make. He adjusted some of them, not many, fewer than I thought. I learnt a ton as he talked to me. I thought, there are 12 million Magic players right now. I'm pretty sure more than half of them would pay to sit in my chair while Dennis Rashid is in my left ear saying, in this 6-man, this defender of da-da-da is probably going to wheel. You don't need to take the 3rd Temple of Deceit because even though we want it, we need this 2-drop more. I learnt a ton, and I came at it from a point of, I know nothing, help me please. And honestly, if you say to people, I know nothing, help me please, most of the time people will help you, because if you think of your experience as yourself as the person who does know stuff, I know jazz piano, I'm not going to say to you, Marshall, if you come along and say, show me what you did there, please. I'm not going to say, no, I'm a jazz pianist. Why would I show you, little man? I'm going to say, awesome, come along. Here, look at this. We went to baseball yesterday with a German guy, Wenzel Krautmann, Grand Prix winner. He'd never been to a game before. Nate Price, you and I spent 3 hours with him talking about stealing second base, what balls and strikes pitch count should be like, when relief pitcher comes in, what an average score is, why a grand slam is weird. And we all loved sharing with him. He was the supplicant and we had the knowledge. So the knowledge is there for you if you do want to improve. But come at it from a position of, there are things that I'm good at. I know there are things I'm good at. I can talk. When it comes to hideous Magic jokes, I'm probably in the top 5 in the world.
You're up there.
I think I'm right up there. But when it comes to correctly evaluating a 5th pick in a draft in an unfamiliar format, I'm not in the top 5 in the world. Help me. Help me, please.
Sure.
Dear limited resources. And of course, you do, which is one of the reasons the show's so awesome.
All right. We've got questions for you, Rich.
Oh, have you?
Yeah. I think I'm ready to start asking you questions. Are you ready to start answering them?
I'll see what I can do for you,
Okay.
yeah.
So
we're in America. Do I get to plead the 5th?
You do. You absolutely have the right to do that.
Awesome.
So if you don't want to answer
Okay.
a question, we'll just move
Sure.
on. I'm going to try to not pin you.
I'll be hard-pressed to find a question I wouldn't be prepared to answer. But.
We got a few, and I'm just going to get this out of the way now. We got a few coverage-related questions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of them are, but what I meant was people asking about things with coverage that we can't talk about.
Okay, sure.
It's just, we're just not allowed to.
Yep.
Like, I would love to. It's just behind-the-scenes boss work stuff that we just can't go on a podcast and say without getting in trouble. So,
3 letters, non-disclosure agreement.
right. And so, but we're going to talk a lot about coverage on here. Don't get me wrong. It was just some people really asked some real specifics about things that I
Sure.
know we can't. And they were digging, and I'm fine with it, but I'm not going to ask you those questions.
That's fine. Yep, I'm ready to rock and roll.
I am, though, I'm going to tell you some of these I'm going to want a short answer on.
Okay.
Because there are a lot of questions here.
Okay.
And I know you can talk. And I know that I could, one of them is what's your favorite color, and I'm going to make you one word that one.
Blue.
And I'm going to save that one.
It's blue.
You already used 2 words.
Blue.
All right, so Zach Levine asks, this is a short answer. What's the longest day or felt like the longest you've had in the booth? Does anything come to mind?
It's actually text coverage. I did Brazilian Nationals 2 years running on my own, text coverage, and the top 8 Brazilian Nationals, where I covered the quarters, the semis, and of course the final, took 7.5 hours. And across the weekend, I typed 27,000 words onto the Magic website, and I broke me.
Okay.
I finally found my limit. Done.
Good. Birdie Wools has a question, and this is one that I picked knowing the answer, but I think that this is a good one for you to answer in the sense of sometimes people don't have a full perspective on like what it's like to be Rich Hagan, and in a lot of ways what it's like to be me. What are you playing at GP Manchester, assuming you're going?
Well, I'll be there.
Yes.
I will be directing the stream, which means I sit behind a console with lots of buttons, running everything, organising the between rounds content, working the commentators, and just literally choosing the camera angles and stuff like that. I don't actually choose the feature matches. That's a little misconception. That's a sort of more of a team effort. But yeah, basically, almost everything that's to do with European Grand Prix coverage is my fault.
Yeah, well, but I mean the key here being, of course, that you don't get to play.
No.
I mean, you can technically currently play Magic.
I am legally entitled to, but the reality
it just
is
never happens.
The events I care about, because I care passionately about playing good Magic, which is why I'm so ashamed when I don't, is essentially to go to a North American Grand Prix, target a GP, come to the States, practice for it, play in it.
Okay. This next one's for both of us, but I'm not going to answer it at all. I'm going to let you do it. This is from Vinny Farah, and he says, what's the biggest difference between the two of us relating to the game, play style, etc.?
Marshall
Between you and I.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Vinny. Marshall is super efficient, brings a lot of his poker expertise to Magic and sees the game more analytically than I am able to. That is a skill set that I am relatively lacking. And then I would say, in terms of away from playing the game, but more in our approach to what we do professionally, I would say that Marshall, and in fact this is true of everyone else on the coverage team except me, and possibly Zach to an extent, Marshall is a Magic player first who has learnt all these fantastic skills that he has to bring the love of the game to people. And I am an entertainer first. I've been on stage since I was 2, and I've done ads, and I write musicals and comedy and blah, 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 blah. I am a performer who loves Magic, and I want to bring the love of Magic in a TV setting to people. Most people on coverage, and GPs as well, it's true, are Magic players first who have learnt the craft of the entertainment world, and I am the reverse of that. I have always been an entertainer first.
All right, Hugo Elaine, he's got 2 questions. So when I asked this on Twitter, I said, going to have Rich on, I want to do an Ask Me Anything with him, shoot me some questions. And people were asking reasonable questions, but they don't realize that you can take a hard ball. Like, you can crush a fastball out of the park here, and you will be very honest with them, and it's a rare chance to get look behind the curtain of what it's like in Rich Hagan's head. So he actually followed up as well. So the first one was a big question, and I want you to try to keep it concise. It's, what makes you love Magic so much? Because it's clear that you do.
Easy. People. People. There's not always a way to win. There's always a way to lose, and you can watch people choose to lose when they can win. That drama will never, ever get old. And whatever the words on the card are is irrelevant. What matters is that moment when you can see that they've won and they know they've lost, and you watch them make themselves lose, even though you can see they've won. That is human drama in its rawest form, and I am literally goosebumping in front of Marshall as I say that, because nothing beats that drama.
Yeah, it's great. Okay, his second question, this is his follow-up.
Yes.
To the, after I tweeted, come on guys, give me some. Does he prefer to, do you prefer to do coverage with me or BDM?
That's actually an easy one, because we have seats, we have roles. It is no coincidence, curse Marshall Sutcliffe, that I do fewer US GPs than I might like. And the reason is, there is a host chair. Marshall's quite good at hosting. You may have spotted this. Marshall is in the host chair. I would be in the host chair. God forbid I would be in the Randy Buehler Hall of Famer Jake Van Loenen Pro Tour Champion expert chair at a modern GP discussing every line of play that I would make. That's not my chair. So Marshall and I essentially, at GP level, live in the same chair. At Pro Tour level, well, I have a different chair. I have a news desk chair. So the easy answer is BDM, because I wouldn't really be paired with Marshall very often. Now, that said, when we have been paired together, it is awesome, because Marshall lets me host, and Marshall is the expert, and we get... There's a lot of duties that the host has to do, like naming every card. Here is turn 2. It is a travelling philosopher. And if I've used up those seconds saying that, I can't then go on to discuss why I like or don't like travelling philosopher. That's the expert's job. So when Marshall is sitting in the host chair, he has a billion things to say that he does not have the chance to do because he is required to say, 18 all, here's turn 3, Rada untaps, here's the travelling philosopher, turn late, mind you. What do you think about that, Randy? And now all that knowledge inside Marshall's head is lost. So when I get Marshall in the expert chair, I'm super happy. Because I'm preaching to the converted. You people at home know Marshall knows his limited stuff, right? But yeah, so I love working with both of them. But the reality is that BDM is my partner, if you will, my broadcast partner, left and right.
Quick one here. Michael Schneider wants to know, Michelle Snyder wants to know, what's your favorite footy team? I'm assuming that means soccer. And how do you guys feel about the upcoming World Cup in Brazil?
Oh, okay. So footy must mean soccer, yes. Soccer, so Crystal Palace, the team I grew up supporting. Nottingham Forest, the team I was at college following locally. I'm not a huge soccer fan, though. I'm much more North American sports. I think a lot of people know that about me. My big four sports are the North American big four sports.
Which is very rare for a European, by the way.
Super weird. Just came about. Long story. I won't bore you now. But very definitely that's the case. I'm super excited about the World Cup. Ever since I was little, you get these wall charts that you can fill in all the results, and I used to get like 15 of them and put them all over the house, like in the bathroom, behind the door, under the piano, under the doormat, in every room, fill them in, Uruguay 1, Iran 0, that kind of nonsense.
Sure.
You Americans are going, oh my God, Uruguay 1, Iran 0, what is that about?
Is that a touchdown?
But, yeah, hush now. So, yes. But if it was footy, probably the Sydney Swans. That's a little Australian rules reference.
Okay. Samuel Thompson wants to know, what do you think of the British Magic scene at the moment, and how can we make it more like the United States Magic scene?
That's really tough. I've been in the UK scene for a very long time, and it will horrify some listeners to imagine that there was a point where I was number 6 in England. I'll just let that sink in for a moment. There were only 5 Magic players rated higher than me in my country.
I mean, you have played on the
I've played a couple of Pro Tours. I'm not terrible at Magic historically, but we're a small community.
You shouldn't be. You're saying you shouldn't have been at the upper echelon.
Yeah, that's bad news. We've had some great players in the past. We've had people who've made Pro Tour finals. Warren Marsh, John Ormond's been right in there. Tony Dobson. That crowd. It is not long, let's not forget, it is not long since the likes of Daniel Royd and Eduardo Sajkalik were very active on the Pro Tour. Eduardo Sajkalik was in the Pro Tour top 8 of Return to Ravnica in 2012. Jonathan Randall is a terrific player. The Orsini Jones brothers. We haven't had no success. Craig Jones, obviously, in the mid-2000s. You look to him. I do think it's true that right now English Magic is in a pretty weak place. Let's not mince our words. We are not terribly good, and our PTQ winners and this is not being racist, boys and girls, but the overwhelming majority of English PTQs are currently not won by English people. They are won by visiting Venezuelans and Italians and Brazilians and Japanese and Portuguese and people who are studying in London and going for a day out in Manchester, while they're studying abroad. Fabrizio Anteri, who is Venezuelan and a terrific guy, I guarantee you, will be the England World Magic Cup captain this year. Of course he will. He's had a phenomenal run. 3rd at a GP, 2nd at a GP, 1st at a GP. But we do not have a lot of strength in depth right now. And how to make that more like the US? be more competitive, have more people trying to be good, more people who can acknowledge that they're not good when they think they are, people who are not content to be winning F&M every week, but actually think anytime they don't make a PTQ top 8, something's gone wrong, and then test.
We already asked. Robert Windsor wanted to know what your favorite Magic color is. It's blue, not close.
Blue.
Warren Smith wants to know, who are you most interested to write a book about of the current pro players in the mix today, and why? You know, you wrote your book, Grinder.
That's right. I wrote about Brad Nelson. That's a fantastic question. Oh, wow.
Demestrio, he's interesting.
He is interesting, and he'll be a lot more interesting when he's won some things.
Agreed.
Right? I'm quite interested, not in a player, but in a group of players, which are, which Demestro is in. The Warcraft players. The World of Warcraft TCG players. That game is now dead, it's gone. Hearthstone is its sort of digital rebirth / equivalent and so on. But Joe Demestrio, really, really, really good World of Warcraft player. Ansi Alkio, phenomenal World of Warcraft player. Tim Rivera, top 8 of Born of the Gods, phenomenal World of Warcraft player. Stuart Wright, who was very good at Magic whilst simultaneously being one of the world's best WoW players. I'm really interested to see how many of those people make the leap to rededicating themselves to Magic, which is a game which has a bit more variance because there is no mana in WoW. You just put a card face down and that's your mana for the turn. So you can always hit your 5-drop on turn 5, and that doesn't happen in Magic. And I'm really interested to see over the next couple of years how that sort of group, and there are more, but those three certainly interest me a lot.
And how that transition goes.
Yeah.
I like that. Daniel Gray says, and this is a personal, I mean, this is a tough question. The only thing I can think of is how he deals with his haters. These are critics.
Sure.
All coverage people have their haters, but he has the most. I don't know if that's a fact, but I have seen people are mean to you, man.
Sure.
They are. You know, they're mean to all of us. I mean, I've been
Sure.
called stuff. How do you deal with it?
I cry. I hurt myself. It sometimes feels like a price not worth paying. I try to understand a polite version of what they're saying. So everyone talks all the time in hyperbole. Like if I talk,
Especially on the internet, by the way.
yes, of course.
Which is where most of, I mean,
Where it
I've
comes
seen
from.
people interact with you in real life, and they're nothing like that. They love you. It's signing your play mats, getting pictures with you, stuff like that.
Sure.
There's none of that.
No, and but then I mean, no one's going to. It would
understand.
take a lot of balls.
I understand.
To come up to me and go, "Hey, Rich, on the internet, I think you suck, but now I've met you, I want to tell you, you suck."
Agreed.
I'm looking forward to someone coming to Atlanta and saying that this weekend now. But
Shake your hand. I
Yeah,
think you're terrible.
You're terrible. No, look. Here's the thing. I have my favourite sports commentators in NFL or whatever. I'll come out and say that there was a point at which I didn't like Chris Collinsworth very much at all. I'm pretty certain I've had conversations with people where I've said, "Man, Collinsworth sucks. Why did they hire that guy?" Now just insert the word Rich Hagan and you have what plenty of people say about me. So that's the first thing. I try and change the words they say into a more temperate language. So I understand the point. They don't like me. Yes, okay, fine. They don't like me. Why don't they like me? Now, it can be that the air quotes hate comes in a lot of different forms. If there are things I can't do anything about, because let's be honest, there are people who don't like me because I'm not American.
Sure. Yeah, your accent, the way you
Right?
talk, like all
Yeah.
these little things. Yeah.
And I am British, and I sound like I'm British, and I'm not going to hide that, and I can't change it. Equally, I'm a ginger. I have curly ginger hair, right? Not a lot I can do about that. Now, I could lose some weight. So if someone says, I hate him, he's fat. Fat and ugly. I get that. Well, I could lose some weight, But my face is kind of my face, and I'm not in the business of plastic surgery. So those kind of things, I'm just going to have to ignore as you don't like me and you found something to pick on that you don't like. But then there are things, and then there's another group of I hate him because. And these are the ones I actually really like because they are essentially variations on he doesn't give me what I think Magic coverage should be, which often means I'm asking, air quotes, stupid questions that they would like instead to be far more complicated. So I should be, rather than discussing what black-red decks are doing in draft with a pro, they want me to be asking about turn 9 of game 2. They want it to be more granular because they're at a level where they're in the business of learning, of getting better, and their version of getting better is the play that they would have made, the line they would have taken on turn 9 of game 2. Not that black-red is Minotaurs and aggressive. But at the Pro Tour, we have, let's say there are 50,000 PTQers around the world at any given time who are like actively trying to get on the Pro Tour in a given season, 50,000. And then let's say that we get 1 million plus viewers in terms of YouTube Deck Tech this and, live there and the overnight replay and in the following week, whatever. Let's say we're into 7 figures.
Yeah, and to be, I don't want to, I want to step in here because he's not throwing that number out. Like, we will often get 400,000-ish unique views just on our stream during the course of a Pro Tour, and that doesn't count YouTube and Nico and all these other things. Those numbers actually do come in. So 1 million is how many unique people watch it.
So let's start off with that. So who are the other 95% of the audience? If every single PTQer is watching and wishing we were being more complicated, what's the other 95% of the audience? Wizards do terrible things sometimes. We do bad things. We get things wrong. But you can be certain that they want as many people as possible to watch Pro Tour coverage and GP coverage, which suggests that if we are, to some people, dumbing down, we're actually at a level where an awful lot of Magic players are and are finding value.
And you're representing those players on the stream.
In the biggest way. Look, if there is one thing that my job is, Magic is a game of conversation. And we all know that there are conversations that we are frozen out of all the time, either because we don't know the people in the store, or because we're not good enough for them, or because we don't play their format, so they're busy testing Modern, and, well, I've got a Legacy deck, and whatever it is. Our job on coverage is to put you, the viewer/listener, into the conversation. Look, this show tonight puts all your listeners 2 feet away from me.
From our conversations that we've been having all week.
Most of them have never been 2 feet away from me. Now they are. That's the power of radio and of coverage. So I always feel kind of apologetic to the haters who say, I don't like the style of coverage. You're being too jokey, too dumbed down. You don't ask the right questions. And partly the way I deal with that is, this comes back to the entertainment thing. They are getting a version of it. I laugh because a lot of the time on Twitter, after I've met people at a weekend, people will tweet and say, I met MTG Rich at this. He seemed like a really nice guy. Brackets, what a surprise, close brackets. The coverage me is not 100% me. I'm not as on as the coverage Rich Hagan is all the time. The awesome, wow, this is incredible. I'm a very enthusiastic person in real life too. But I can be quiet and introspective and, oh, dear God, just listen to this show back and see where we went to. But, so in that sense, I think, yeah.
Is that a defense mechanism? Like, are you...
No, it's
is
the
that
role.
they're making fun of my persona?
Yes, they don't like the presenter of the Pro Tour coverage, which has the label Rich Hagan. But look, even without the defense mechanism, because I'm sure that's part of it, the Rich Hagan who presents the Pro Tour coverage does not have a 12-year-old ballet dancing daughter, or a 4-year-old son who he plays basketball with, or a wife who he's about to have a 20th anniversary with. Those 3 people are super important in my life. They have nothing whatsoever to do with the guy who says good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you are around the world. Welcome to the final of Pro Tour Journey into Nyx.
And bye.
And bye. Yeah. So,
Okay.
but bottom line,
You do
it
feel
hurts
You feel
a lot.
it. Yeah.
And it should, because I've learnt a lot from the people who've criticised, and sometimes I learn stuff.
Yeah. You know, from my perspective, there's two things I wanted to say before we move on to the next question. The first one is that there's a level of irony to people criticizing you for being, for asking questions on a lower level than they'd like, right? The two ways that that's ironic, the first one is that one thing that Magic players traditionally like to do is feel smart, and it makes them feel smart. So you're actually giving them what they want, even if they didn't know it, and you do. I mean, you're not, you know, which I think is funny. And the other thing is that they don't see the level of effort that you put in behind the scenes. They just think that you just show up and you're on the set, and in reality, you're running a lot of the shows that they watch from behind the scenes, and they would be looking at a lot worse of a show if you weren't there, and I find that ironic that they decide to pick on you sometimes when in reality the show itself would be worse if you weren't there, regardless of whether you were in the seat or not.
That's very kind, but it is also worth saying that for all the people who say, you know, I hate this or that, even if they don't mention me because they don't know it's anything to do with me, when someone says, someone tweeted about really loved Zach and Richard, and it was Randy and BDM on day one, doing the second draft at the wall. Now, we could have approached that a number of ways. We could have just put it up on screen and had them sit at the news desk and talk. But we didn't. We had them at the wall. We actually had them pointing to stuff. We had them talking direct to camera. That's a style. That's my choice. I made that happen. So when someone says, I really liked that style of draft coverage, in my head I get to add at MTG Rich.
Good. That's great.
And that makes me feel super happy. And
Good.
so, you know, and I do, and look, let me just finish on this with saying, I do genuinely apologise to people who don't like what they're getting from me, because I love the game so much and I want them to have every bit as fantastic an experience as they can possibly have, and it's my job to deliver that. So when I am actively making people upset by being the me that I am, of course that makes me feel terrible, and I feel terrible for them that is the case.
Sure.
But, you know...
Yeah, another analogy that comes to mind is cards. You know, we'll hear this from the guys in R&D quite a bit, where somebody will send them an email and say, why did you make this crappy card? It sucks. You should have changed this. And the answer sometimes is, it's not for you. Mm-hmm. This card was meant for a casual player or a Johnny or, you know, some specific type of subset of players that you are not. Yeah. Right? And I think that it shows a lot of maturity, and there's sometimes a lack of that with what we're talking about here, of somebody saying, Rich isn't my favorite commentator, but he's not for me. Right? I get that from somebody else in the booth, and that's the one that I'm going to focus my energy on. It's okay to you know, not, you know, enshrine Rich, but I think it's just a little ridiculous to bash him. Why don't we move on to the next one? I appreciate you being so candid with that question. I know it's a tough subject. Victor Puente says, when you see an obvious misplay, what's the best way to ask the player about it afterwards?
Okay, so first of all, that presumes I'd see the obvious misplay, but okay, let's say it's ridiculously obvious. Okay, so I can do the precise one. Eduardo Sajkalik of England, top 8 of Pro Tour, returned to Ravnica. He cast a Vendilion Click in Game 5, I think, might even been Game 4, of his quarterfinal. And it was textless.
I remember this.
It still had flying, but that was the only word that was apparently on the card. And you see, even as I say that, I sound like a dick saying that, because it sounds like I'm being facetious about it. Now, Nate Holt of Walking the Plains went and interviewed Eduardo afterwards. Now, there is no possible strategic advantage to having done it. No one who knew the words on the card could have known it was anything other than a genuine screw-up. So what do you say? Well, I think you say, listen, fantastic job, congratulations. Because let's not forget, the goal of Magic is to be allowed to make mistakes later than anybody else. When you're in the top 8, 375 people have stopped making mistakes. You've been given the right to carry on making mistakes. That's a privilege. That's not a threat. That's how awesome. So, what a great job. Tell us what was going through your mind when that unfortunate Vendilion click happened. Now, in the event that happened there, Eduardo told the absolute truth, which was, my brain decided to stop playing Magic. I had been at 4-3, I think, or 3-3, and he had had 10 straight functional win and elimination matches to make the top 8. He'd come back on Sunday exhausted. He'd played 3 3/4 great games of Magic, and then he died. And his brain just went, that's the end. No more Magic, you're done.
Yeah.
And so, look, it's super easy to talk to winners. It's really tough to talk to losers. Witness Jacob Wilson, second place at the last Pro Tour.
Yeah, what was that like?
So, yeah, that's a good question because a lot of people have asked me about that, and there was quite a lot of criticism as well. It's like, hey, why did you interview the second place? Now, I was already standing there. I hadn't had a chance to see him or talk to him. I was already standing there waiting to do the interview when I saw him, and I could tell he was done. You know, he had emptied his tank into every choice he'd made, and he was barely standing. If I had found a way to just get out of there, I would have done. And the closest I could manage was basically, in fact, not really to ask him a question, but to say, I'm sure this feels horrific right now, but I hope you understand what great pleasure you've given people, how proud you're going to be of what you've accomplished this weekend. And he, with great dignity, got through that minute or so. And we've talked since, and he's completely fine about it. And I think it went fine. But it's super hard to talk to to anyone who's lost when it matters, and it matters.
Yeah. All right, we've got a lot of questions here. But
Okay, I'll be super quick
here. Joe Spanier says, "What's the most embarrassing thing you've ever done on coverage?"
Oh,
you're a professional. I will preface this is that, all of us. Rich is pretty well prepared and keeps things at a really nice tone, but we've had some funny verbal slip-ups in the news desk every once in a while from a few of us. But I can't think of one for you offhand.
There's one, and I am so not telling it.
Oh, come on!
No.
You don't want people to go back and find it?
Yeah, people will go and find it. What I will tell you is that there is certainly a version of coverage that has this sort of weird title of late night coverage XXX, which is a kind of version of coverage that involves like people saying what they really think.
Good Trolls Live. I don't know if you remember that.
Not really, but yeah, so you just kind of do this sort of imaginary version of coverage where...
Oh, I've heard you do this. It is.
So there's a 2-drop, it's a card, I've no idea what it is or does, but then don't worry, neither does he. He's from wherever he's from. So here's a true... Okay, here's the most embarrassing true coverage story. We cover a friend of mine called Dave Sutcliffe and I, we were podcasting in these ye olde days, and we were going to cover Scottish nationals because we'd done English nationals, and obviously we had to be fair, so we were sent by Wizards to cover Scottish nationals. It was a 5.5-hour drive, and for the first 5 hours and 15 minutes of that journey, we did imaginary commentary on matches, being incredibly rude about Scottish Magic players. It kind of started off with, welcome to Scottish Nationals. The bad news is that the good player's unavailable this weekend, but that still leaves 78 people who can barely dribble on their cards joining us here in Perth, Scotland for this year. Now, that was like, the intro.
Oh, man.
And it's like, we're into round 3, and amazingly, someone's got to 2-0, and it just got snarkier and snarkier and stupider, and
I like it.
And we were playing like the Loch Ness Monster against a lump of haggis, and And by the time we got there, we were ready to be utterly professional and have a fantastic
You got
time
it out of your system.
with our dear, genuine Scottish friends who we absolutely love, and by the way, a phenomenal part of the UK Magic scene, and they know how much I love them. But if some of those friends had been in the car through that journey, my God, there'd have been some slayage because we were rude.
I love it. Kai from Germany wants to know why England is called the motherland of football but never does well at big tournaments.
That's okay.
Kai from Germany.
Kai
He
from-
wrote that, by the way.
Kai from Germany.
He wrote that.
Okay. I'm the statistician, so I'm just going to go with a number, 1,966. That's a year, by the way. Kai from Germany.
All right. Kate C. wants to know, and this is, again, I like these kind of questions.
Am I
because,
single?
No. But these are really funny because I think that they show, like, I know you personally, so I know what your life is like, generally speaking. But a lot of people don't. They don't know how much you put into this cover stuff. I want to know more about his day job.
Yeah.
He mentioned writing lyrics, libretti. I don't know what that is. And I'm curious about that.
Okay, so I've always been an entertainer all my life, and fundamentally I'm a storyteller. Now, I don't mean once upon a time there was but I've spent my life writing musicals. I ran a theatre group with my mum for many years. We wrote musicals together and ran our own theatre company. For a decade, I played a World War I German fly ace called Baron von Schneider II in the world's leading 1920s and 30s musical comedy act called The Kasperger Steps, in which I juggled and played the piano at the same time. And, got wrapped in a carpet, blindfolded and handcuffed, and played Mozart's Rondo alla Turk on a piano suspended from the ceiling. Stuff like that. I've conducted lots of shows. I've played the piano, obviously, and sung and performed and done jokes and written and what have you. But magic to me is storytelling. It's, Patrick Chapin winning the Pro Tour. It's story. It's drama. So to me, in a way, I've always done the same thing, just with sort of slightly different
Telling
twist.
stories through different mediums.
Yeah.
Okay.
But my day job is magic.
It is.
I get up. I design coverage for Grand Prix. I source talent. I look at new equipment. I'm writing sort of, policy documents for where we're moving forward. I work with Greg Collins, who's the global boss of coverage, about, the direction we want to be taking under him. And, things like the life total graphics at GPs. That's something I'm, involved in
on a
day
Wednesday
to day.
afternoon.
On a Wednesday afternoon,
Yep.
that's what I mean. And you and I, Marshall, we sit and have a coverage meeting every week.
Right.
Where are we going next? What's the plan for Milwaukee? What's the plan for Atlanta? Who's doing this? What's the special angle that they bring to the show? All that kind of stuff. Yeah, so magic
Your
is...
day job is coverage.
100% of the time, I get up, I think about magic, then I go to bed.
I don't think people know that. Joe Spanier has another one that I thought was... we'll see if you want to answer it. Has there ever been a time that you've wanted to yell at and or hit one of your co-commentators while on stream? Has somebody ever really just crossed you where you're just like, I could just slap you, but instead I will retain professional smiling and all that?
I've never hit anyone past the age of about 8. So that's not part of my characteristic. Now, being angry... probably. I can't think of anything in particular. There are times I felt a little humiliated. When I started out, and I can certainly remember saying something on air that I had been told by multiple pros, and someone else on the coverage said, "Yeah, that doesn't sound right. Yeah, I'm not sure you're right about that, Rich." And I was like, yeah, that wasn't me. That was 2 of the top 8 and someone in the top 16 who thought that Ivory Giant was a good high pick or whatever the thing was. And I felt like, come on now, I wouldn't have said it if it was me.
Didn't give you enough credit.
What made you think it was me making that point? I'm not that dumb. But no, the team that we have at Pro Tours, it is a team. It really is. There are 7 of us, and we have very specific jobs in each round. And we are very, very different people as well. But we all desperately care about bringing you the best show we can, and that means parking the ego at the door for all of us, and we're pretty good at that, and we're all pretty proud of each other's successes.
So
in
not
that
a lot
regard.
of punching in the booth.
Not a lot of punching in the booth.
All right, this next one's from Brian in Seattle.
Hi, Brian.
He says, "Who is the greatest thief in the multiverse?" And he wants to note that this question's for Marshall.
Oh,
Yeah, we're going to ignore that one.
wait, is it not Dak Faden, Marshall? Is he not the greatest thief in the multiverse?
This is another one. I'm going to read you the question, but
Because I thought it was Dak Faden,
you've already answered it.
the greatest thief in the multiverse.
It's from Chris Lansdell.
Yeah.
Does the criticism of his commentary style bother him? We've covered
Sure.
that. But he also says, and why are so many people wrong about how awesome he is? So I'm just going to let that one sit.
Oh, bless.
I agree with that. A couple of questions from our friends Graham Stark, and then also Brian Wong had to just nose his way in here again. And we can't take one show off.
Bit of red hot loading ready run, and in fact, all the LRs sort of all kind
Yes.
of, it's like L. Is that LLRRR
Yes.
between them?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So I'm going to read you a bunch of these in a row. They're kind of blocked together.
Yep.
If he's commentating with someone who just flat out says something wrong, how do you handle that? He wants to know how I do as well, but I'll let you answer. Brian wants to know, in that vein, is there a tell for, so a tell being like the poker thing, like is there something the viewers can look out for, I can't believe my booth partner just said that, right?
Oh.
You know, one of the words you and I were,
Okay.
were discussing earlier was unorthodox, right? Well, that player took an unorthodox line. I mean, you can almost directly translate that into terrible
Wrong.
or awful, right?
Yeah.
The last one, which is harder to commentate, a blistering 4-turn game or a 30-turn grind fest?
Oh, I can answer that one super easy.
Yeah.
It's the
I
30
want you to
turn.
bang these
Yeah,
answers out.
30 turns for everything's happening. 30 turns, you're waiting for things to happen. The board is often empty. The graveyard is full. They've still got cards in hand, but nothing's really happening. You've got Sylvan Caryatids and courses in play, but that's all. Four
turn
turns
is bang,
is like
bang, bang, bang.
super excited. Can he pull out? He's at 13. Now he's at 8. He must draw that fourth land. Is it a supreme verdict? No, it isn't. Game.
Right.
Fantastic.
What about when someone says something wrong? You know, let's just say, you know, sometimes we just say the wrong life total. That's easy to correct. But what
Yeah.
if they say something that you just know isn't true?
Well, so those things are often things like maybe you forget trample, or maybe you forget a hex proof.
Or maybe you've talked to the
or-
entire Channel Fireball Pantheon team, and they all say, this entire format is about Sylvan Caryatid, period.
Right.
And then somebody in the booth comes in and goes, it's all about Xenagos.
Right. And at that point, I would say, and you know what, Zach, that's why I love Magic so much. Because to a man, Channel Fireball Pantheon say Caryatid's the thing, and you say Xenagos is the thing.
There you go.
And guess what? You might be right. I want to watch this next 4 rounds of Block Constructed while we see just how good Xenagos is. Because I can see it's good here.
By the way, he does this all the time.
Yeah,
he
I mean,
goes
this
into
is-
commentator
I'm
mode.
just-
You can just turn it on like a light switch.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
incredible.
I can actually do that. I can do that with like making the bed. I can commentate on
We don't
literally
need
anything.
that. Is there a tell for what? For my... you just said that? Like, do you ever say...
We have been known to look at each other and like, okie doke.
Yeah.
All right then. Yes. And so often one of the fun ways around that is to leave a pause that is a teeny fraction too long, just to the point where it starts to feel uncomfortable. And then you say, and now in game 2 action, it's 13 life each. And it's quite clear that
It
you've
is.
just sort of, a bit like a sort of Chernobyl radioactive zone, you've just built a really powerful wall around that last comment. And it is now consigned to a 2,000-year half-life.
All right.
You know.
Another quick one from Kenyon Colleran. What American college team do you support?
Now he knows that I'm a massive US sports fan, but I'm actually not. I don't have a college team in any of the major sports.
Are you taking suggestions? I'm not going to give you one, but maybe your fans.
I certainly follow March Madness every year with a huge passion, and my team is always the lower seed.
Favorite This is from Clayton Clemens. He wants to know what your favorite card is and what your least favorite card is. So what I'd like is your favorite card that you should already have. And then the other one is, if you have a specific card that is actually your least favorite, give it to us. But if not, you can give us the type of card.
Yeah, well, I mean, since quite clearly all the best Magic cards are things like,
Counterspell.
Capsize. No, the proper good ones. Capsize, Whispers of the Muse, Forbid, Ophidian. Yeah, I did an inside R&D interview for the...
You haven't answered the question.
Oh my God.
What is your favorite Magic card?
Probably Capsize.
Okay, go ahead with your story.
Ethan Fleischer, who's lead designer on Journey into Nyx, talking about Strive, saying how it used to be a bit like buyback, but Wizards doesn't like repeatable game states where you just cast the same spell over and over, and players don't want that. And I'm thinking of my years of capsize your land, capsize your land. I'm like, what are you talking about? Nothing's better than a repeatable game state.
Least favorite card?
That's easy. There's a bunch of them. They all feature the words "cannot be countered."
Gotcha.
I hate them.
Pick any
hate
of those.
them. Scragnoth, 1997. I looked at that and I went, "Are you for real? Protection from blue cannot be countered? What am I meing to do with that?"
All right.
Answer: Navineral's Disc. Go away.
Chris Aston says, How do you decide on the questions for your game shows? And how difficult is it to run them? P.S. I love them.
Oh, thank you so much. I love doing the game shows. For those of you who don't know, we do a kind of trivia / stand-up comedy nonsense hour at every European GP. And in fact, in Atlanta, which by the time you heard this will have gone, but whenever I'm in the US, I sometimes get a chance to do them. It's pretty easy. I have a pretty weird imagination, which means I make very odd links with things. So, for example, in this block, we have the temples. So there's 10 temples that everyone knows. Although I bet if you were asked to write them down, you'd struggle. If I said, name the 10 temples.
I could name the 10 temples.
I bet you could name 9.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I'd bet you'd struggle with the 10th. But in Atlanta, I'm doing around, that's 10, but there's 21 of them in Magic history. A card with the word temple in. Name them. And we always sort of do, it's just lists of things. So, if you get 12 out of 21, well done. You might win a prize at 15 out of 21. But I like to do weird and wacky things like, what's the total number of ultimate on all the Planeswalkers? Stuff like that. We do like rounds of chaining card names together. Lots of wacky stuff. And the infamous art round. Now, the art round is hard, let me tell you, because I draw cards from the current set.
Terribly.
Terribly, amazingly, clearly, is what you mean. And
that is the implication of his question.
People are amazed when they see my art for this round. Yeah, we have a ton of fun. I love doing them. I love just sharing the fun of Magic. And I love telling terrible Magic jokes, it turns out.
Shivam Bot wants to know, how come you don't do more commentary? I'm assuming he means in the booth.
Sure. So partly that's sort of horses for courses. We can all be in one place at once. I believe that 40 years from now, there will be people praying that Marshall doesn't die from year to year so that they can have him in the booth for his, 276th straight Pro Tour, because you only have to look at US sports to see how Vin Scully or people are just utterly beloved,
just
and people are so bereft when a John Madden leaves the booth. Or even like a sideline reporter, like you see Craig Sager missing from the coverage because he's got leukemia, and best all goodwill to Craig Sager right now. That's like, he's someone who is synonymous with love of basketball for a lot of people. And in the same way, I think as Magic develops and coverage develops, you're going to see people, and it may not be Marshall, it may not be me, but there will be people for whom that becomes true. Now, I love doing Magic commentary, but I'm at a point in my career where at the European GP, I'm running the whole thing. So that leaves me, I'm literally choosing all the camera angles and everything that's going on there. So I can't really be there. And at Pro Tours, well, it turns out being the ringmaster is the seat that I am best suited to. Bringing the results, knowing that some guy finished third at Malaysian Nationals in 2007. That's right in my wheelhouse. Chatting to people, being inclusive, having fun with the viewers. And the host chair in the booth, once again, it's about, that's a turn 2 travelling philosopher. He's drawn Agent of Erebos. Is he going to cast it? Will he hold it? What's in the graveyard? And in a lot of ways, I guess I'm better suited elsewhere. I still love doing it. Absolutely love. If someone gives me a weekend to sit in seat 1 and learn from a great expert, you know, sitting next to Ben S for a round, sitting next to you for a round, Marshall, sitting next to Zach, any of the guys, I consider that a great honour and privilege. When I get in the booth on Sundays for 2 semi-finals and a final, the 3 biggest matches, I can't believe they let me do that. What an honour, straightforwardly.
Tobias Enderberg, actually, he asks similar about the British Magic scene, so I think we can.
Yeah, we're still not very good.
Yeah, even after all this time.
Yeah.
This is one that I don't know how much you want to address, but I'll throw it at you.
Okay.
Cole asks, how has coverage expanded over the years, and where is it going in the future? What should the PT be like in 5 years?
Oh, fantastic. I'll give him 5 years and 10 years and 50 years. Here's the thing. You only need to look. I'm incredibly proud of what we do, and I can look back and still be proud of some of the things that we've done. But you only need to look at any of the major North American sports and imagine a Magic trajectory that in some small way mirrors those in terms of growth of participation, growth of interest, growth of cultural awareness. And to say, if you imagine that Magic the game will exist in 10 and 20 and 50 years' time, all of which I utterly expect to happen, it is quite clear that this incredible combination of mental workout and beauty and competition and proving and churn of stimulation of ideas is something that a certain breed of person is going to love forever. It's not, chess isn't going out of fashion in 3 weeks' time either. I fully expect Magic to be around when I die in a vibrant way. So part of the answer is about money. It's about what happens when instead of 12 million, there are 50 million players. It's what if, I watched the Lego movie and thought, if the Magic movie from Fox is a patch on the popularity of the Lego movie, we're going to have to be ready because suddenly 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 GPs are going to be 10,000 player GPs. And, I can hear the judges just going
cringing. Yeah.
But the reality is that you adapt to those changing circumstances. So to answer his question, where will the Pro Tour be in 5 years? I hope it will be in at least as great a shape as it is now. I expect to see more coverage. I certainly expect to see more coverage leading up to the event. I think we'll see, you'll get all the stuff that you get from genuine sports broadcasting, because right now, to send me to Reed Duke's home in Sugarloaf, New Jersey.
New York.
Yeah. Sorry, New York.
Yeah,
Sorry about that. It's something that we can see we could do, but who wants to fly me there and take a camera crew there and spend 2 days with him and then edit it and end up with a 3-minute piece that we might use if he makes the top 8? Well, we're not at that point yet. Now, NBC, well, they are. They're at the point where they can send a camera crew around 10 different golfers to do a lifestyle piece on all of them. And for the 2 of them that are in contention in the 9 holes on the stretch on Sunday, they show those 2 3-minute pieces. We're not at that stage yet. One day I can see that. I can certainly see multiple streams. That can happen. Right now, if you watch Wimbledon or the US Open, you can choose Armstrong, you can choose all the different center court, number 1 court, number 2, number 18. If you want to see women's doubles, you can watch that. You can watch Andy Murray on center. You can watch Federer on court 1. Simultaneously, multi-screen. Even I love when we do like the quad box, the 4 screens at once, the 4 feature matches. It's going to grow. Look, we're in great shape now for where we are in Magic history. But people like me and people like Marshall, we've done our homework. We know what sports broadcasting looks like when it has tens of millions of dollars of advertising revenue aimed at it. We know what the Super Bowl coverage looks like. We know what we'd like Magic coverage to be. And every day, and ironically, this is being recorded just before GP Atlanta, where we've got some upgraded stuff and we're looking at, just taking the next step in the right direction. We are always looking to be as good as we can be with the constraints that we have. And that will always be true. We will never, ever stop wanting to improve because Magic's great and we want the coverage to match the game that we're covering.
Tim Sargent wants to know, where would you rather be during a PT? Plane, news desk, video coverage, written coverage, floor reporter, home?
I want to win.
You want to be in the.
I want to win. When I played, because I have a powerful imagination, so I can pretend that something's important even though it isn't. Yeah.
As Magic fans, we all do that.
Right. Yeah, but
on a big scale.
Yes, absolutely. So at 6-2 on day one of a GP, on my last two GPs, those two with no buys either time have been two of the most exciting hours of Magic I've ever played because I'm playing for my goal. If I lose that, it's like I didn't win the Pro Tour. If I win that, it's like I did. At Toronto in 2010, with no buys, I was one win away from the same record as the top 8. Right? I went 7-2, then lost my last round in the sort of the 10th round when they had the bonus round at midnight. And then I went 5-1 in draft on day 2. When I lost my first round of the final draft, I was distraught.
Yeah.
Because I'd lost my chance of top 8. I thrill to competition.
Okay.
So I would like
you're
to.
A player.
I want to. Okay, private admission. On Saturday nights at Pro Tours, when literally everyone has gone home, except the security guard and me, because I'm still doing prep work for Sunday, I will frequently take a moment to sit at the table in the feature match area and just try and make sure that I understand what those people are about to put themselves through the next day, because I am responsible for sharing with you what those people put themselves through on the Sunday.
That's awesome.
And it is a very private, it's a very special moment.
Michael Strothman.
Oh dear.
So you've gotten trolled a couple of times on your questions. This one's not.
Okay.
Who's your EDH general?
Sorry? What?
Maybe I'll answer this one for you. Rich does not participate in the joys of EDH. In fact, you really dislike it. Like, it
Okay,
is not
no.
something you would want to ever do.
No.
Not as an entity, but for yourself.
No. I think it's a wondrous, wondrous thing. What I have never managed to do for myself, I'm pretty short-sighted, physically short-sighted.
You mean
I do not see far with my eyeballs. My retinas are not in great shape. Which means that when someone 3 seats away casts a 7-cost rare from a set in 2003 with 100 words on it, I have no idea what it is or does. Nor do I have any idea how it's combining with many of the other 7-cost rares from sets I didn't play with that are in their 100-card deck. So there's very little strategy for me in EDH. I know there's a ton in the format, but for me there is almost none. And because I love to be competitive, my EDH general would probably be something like Maloku in a deck with 45 different pictured islands, 53 counterspells, and a capsize. And I'm pretty certain that isn't what I'm meant to be building.
Agreed. Jeff Lewis wants to know, what's your favorite sorcery? You seem like an instant kind of guy to me. And
Yeah, why would I want to do anything on my turn?
Okay, that's your answer. We don't need to go
Wrath
any
of
further.
God. Wrath of God.
There you go. You found it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'll have this,
Okay.
on hand, but I figured I'd throw it at you. What are your peak and average Magic Online ratings? Do you know your rating on Magic Online?
No, not at all. I can tell you that once upon a time when I was, in super competitive mode, I got up to around about 1,800.
Okay.
Certainly, I've been above
So
1,800
solid.
at times.
Yes.
But I would say that when I was, like the last time I drafted what I would call infinite on Magic Online, and I don't mean infinite in the sense of, chaining tickets, but I just played an absolute ton, I would say I would be anywhere from 1675 to 1750.
Okay.
And, over the course of the thing, you win an 8-4, you win an 8-4, then you go 1 and 2 in a Swiss, and suddenly you're back down to 1710, and so somewhere around there. Never hits 1850, I don't think.
He's got a follow-up question that's a little more hard-hitting. What is
Sure.
the meanest thing you've ever done to an opponent and regretted? You're a really nice guy.
I'm really not.
Well, I mean, what I mean is when you play against you, you don't do mean things to your
I really do.
Oh, what do you do?
I'm the nastiest opponent you'll ever play.
No, you're not. I've
Oh,
played you.
no,
I've played you a million
not
times.
you.
You're not nasty
Not
at
you.
all.
Oh, okay. Let's just little reality check. Number of times we played sanctioned Magic, Marshall Sutcliffe.
Zero-ish?
Yeah, the zero's the correct answer.
No, but you play serious. It's not like in our side drafts
Oh
you're
no
just
no no
messing
no
around.
no.
You don't smile
No
when we play.
no. Oh my God. Yeah, you've. Oh dear.
Well, explain
Yeah.
it.
Okay,
Briefly. Yeah.
I believe I am not as good as many of my opponents at understanding correct strategic lines of play. But I believe I am better than almost all my opponents at understanding the human being that I am facing. And I believe since the top of my deck and the top of their deck may decide to conspire to make them beat me, it is much better if I make sure that they've already lost in their own minds before those cards tell them something different. So I am one of the hardest, meanest, give away nothing, make people feel uncomfortable, make people feel under pressure, make people attack me for lethal, push them to their absolute edge mentally, just in case one time in 1,000 I will get an extra win, because I really want to win. The nastiest thing I ever did to an opponent was in round 9 of GP Toronto. I spent all my time being lovely to people about the feature match area because it can be intimidating. Cameras, lights, tons of people. And I always say, look, it's just a chair, it's just a table, and it's just Magic. That's the basic gist. In the last round of Toronto, needing to win to make day 2, we get called for the feature match. My opponent, who I've never met, as we walk towards the feature match area, turns to me and says, "Oh man, I can't believe we got a feature match. Now all my friends are going to see my terrible plays and laugh at me." And I said, "Yes," and carried on walking. I'm not a nice human being.
I want a yes or no on this next
Okay.
one, and then I'll let you. I'm going to decide. Mark wants to know: can you give a crash course in calculating tiebreakers?
Yes.
Go.
Okay, super simple. Everyone you play has a record, and it's a win and loss record. Let's say going into the last round, it's 60%. The number of matches that makes up that 60% could be somewhere in the mid-200s at a Pro Tour, 200 plus. So their record to be at 60% is 120 wins, let's say, and 80 losses. That's how they're at their 60%. In the last round of the 8 people you played on day 1, 5 are still playing in the tournament, and of the 7 people you played on day 2, they're all still playing. So there are another 12 matches that don't involve you against your opponent, who are your past opponents. So of those 12 matches, they are going to add or detract from that 60% opponent match win tiebreak that you currently have. Now, realistically, if they've already played, if their win is 120 and their losses are 80, if they go 8-4, now they're at 128 versus 84. And their percentage has gone up, therefore, from 60 to 61 and a bit, maybe 62. But that's really tough to do, to get 8 out of 12 wins from your random selection of opponents. So much more often, it's 7-5 or 6-6, meaning that tiebreaks don't change very much. As a general rule, if you are 2% above the guy behind you, then, you're in the range of you falling 1% and them rising 1% and a bit, and maybe they overtake you by what happens. What is always true is that when you lose, your opponent match win percentage rises because the guy you just played won a match. That's always true. Overall, it may factor that you fall down because of other people. But 2% is a good guide. Once you are 4% clear of someone, that's super tough to make up in just one round because there are so many matches already played and the sample that gets added to it is really small. Ta-da!
Very nice. Jason Lee wants to know, what is the biggest booth disaster that the audience never learned about? Was there ever a PT where, you didn't know if you were going to be on the air before 3 seconds before it went and it all came together, or?
Well, there was the naked booth, obviously. There was that one. But, other than that,
Obviously.
I can't think of anything. No, that's clearly a lie. No.
We're pretty prepared.
No, we're pretty prepared. There was certainly one at the European Grand Prix. The most Keystone Cops day of my life. We were just starting the European stream. Everything was going wrong. And we literally had, it was Moraine Liebert and Matej Zatelkai, and they were literally running between, over a sort of shuttle runoff about 15 feet of desk to talk into one end where there were microphones and the ability to connect to some version of the internet that let them speak and be streaming. And then a tiny laptop 15 feet away, which couldn't be moved, don't ask me why, that was showing a delayed version by about a minute of the stream that they were actually sort of commentating off. So they were trying to describe the top 8 of a GP off a kind of backdoor stream that was a minute already late. And if you listened, I think it was Bochum, and if you listen to the stream, you can hear on the commentary the announcement of the winner of the GP approximately a minute and a half before the gameplay that you're watching finishes.
Ugh.
Because that's how, bouncing off satellites in Bulgaria with sticky tape we were. And that was mind-bendingly stressful.
All right, last question.
Yeah.
This is kind of an interesting one.
My God, there've been a few.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so much.
I had to cull some of them.
Oh,
Dustin says, who's the best player on the coverage team? And this is the best follow-up. Who thinks he's the best? I love that follow-up.
Of the 7, it's easy to say, if you assume that Luis is a player not on the coverage team.
Yes, let's assume that.
So let's assume that. So there's 7 of us. There's Rashad, Tim, Marshall, me, BDM, Zach, Randy. So it's Randy. That was easy.
Who thinks he's the best?
Randy, presumably. And he's right. I would say that Tim and I are easily the worst 2. I would say that Rashad, who, let's not forget, nearly made a Pro Tour top 8 in Berlin in 2008.
He has a Pro Tour top 14. He will remind you of that anytime you ask.
Yeah. He hides how good he is at Magic because his mind works in very casual ways with Magic a lot of the time.
He's really good.
But he's very good at Magic. Marshall is obviously very good at Magic. Zach has a Pro Tour top 8. BDM is the man who people, I think, would expect to play against and do well against, and just find he's a complete brick wall.
Yes.
Who could top 8 a PT if he chose that that's what he wanted to do in a particular year. If he decided to spend a year being good at Magic, that would be the end for a lot of people because he'd just be good at Magic. He's a sort of American Makihita Mahara. The world is a luckier place for him not playing proper Magic all the time.
All right, before I let you go, give me your best Martin Yuza.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, at table 3, Martin User.
Yes, I love that. Zach and I do that when you're not around. We say, Makahita Mehara.
Makahita Mahara.
Mahara. And we
Yeah.
say, Martin User. All right, Rich.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us and to be so candid as well. I know the audience will really appreciate how honest you've been and how open you've been with them.
You're very welcome.
It's awesome, and I'm happy to be able to bring that. Where can people find you if they would like to see what you're up to?
Okay, so at MTGRich is Twitter. That's almost exclusively Magic stuff. I am Richard Hagan on Facebook. Very welcome to hit me up there. Where else? Now if you have coverage suggestions, and I'm very open, always read every single coverage email I get. MTG Euro Video, that's EURO, as in, European, MTG Euro Video at gmail.com. I will always read, most of the time I'll respond, but I will always read anything you have to say about coverage, especially the European GP coverage, because there's pretty much no one between me and choices, right? I make those decisions and I have to stand and fall by them.
Yeah.
So you're very welcome to come to me with that. And I know how invested people are. So never feel that you don't have a voice in what goes into coverage. You really do.
You really do. And one thing I'd like to remind you about is that there's a lot of collaboration between the North American coverage team and the European coverage team.
Yeah.
We're attempting to get on as close to the same page as possible. So anything that you send to Rich for suggestions will percolate down to us, and we'll get it all figured. So, all right. Well, thanks again, Rich, for joining us. If you guys would like to send us an email, you can do so at lr@lrcast.com. If you'd like to follow myself on Twitter, it's Marshall_LR. And of course, regular co-host is Brian, and he is Brian_LR. If you'd like to join the Limited Resources clan on Magic Online, it's very easy to do. Just send me a message on Magic Online, Marshall_LR, and I will get you an invite. The only rules, of course, you got to love Magic, and you cannot be a jerk. If you meet those criteria, you too can be in the clan. And lest you forget, for all things Limited Resources, lrcast.com. Guys, thanks for hanging out, and we'll talk to you next week.
Hello, everyone. My name's Rich Hagan, and I like to tell magic jokes. Not good jokes, not bad jokes, terrible jokes. Eye-bleeding, stomach-inverting, wall-punching jokes. They are not funny. This is the point in the show where you can walk away. See that stop button? Press it. Press it. If you don't press stop now, you will end up hating Marshall, hating me, but most important of all, listeners, hating yourself for listening. Are you still there? 5, 4, 3, 2. From 3 stories? From 10 stories up? Now that's a boulder fall. Ooh, what a lovely view. I'm Magenta of Horizons. All right, Citizen Hero, stop being so enthusiastic. When Captain Kirk's shirts got intelligently ripped, they were battle-wise velour. What do you say when a 4-2 flash enters the battlefield? Boon, sate, the room, tick, 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 boon. A white enchantment on a 6/6 Nemesis rare? Chained to the rocks. Now, the Potamuses should be right around this corner. Any minute now. If I stay undetected, I'll be breaching Hippo Camp. I just love a dying fire. Yep, I'm an embers wallower. I got given a goose once. I just love them. Yes, I do. I love them. I cannot get enough of them. Do you know why, Marshall? I'll tell you why. Because I am a fanatic of Mo Geese. Any word plus the first letter of the alphabet gains A. An immortal with a bad drinking habit. God swilling. What makes a slave out of the view? Horizon's collar. Baseball player berated for high walks plus hits per innings pitched. Lash of the WHIB. What lightning rode as a kid? Lightning strike. If you worship at the altar of a PTQ top 8, a 3-0's God of Passage. Prince Charles, Master of Waves. Any of my jokes after 8 p.m? Definitely a night howler. Cheeky looking at the future? Omen's Peaker. Opaline Unicorn. You Opaline Unicorn what? Not colours, planes. Why did you stop? For rest. Tax year 2012 to 2013, $4,179.56. Profit at Crewfix. Farmer working for Minotaurs, Rage Blood's Hayman. What Savages act on? Savages Urge. Look at that. Heliod wasn't happy. See? God's Revenge. Catabatic. Breeze. Monsoon. Dust Devil. Shredding Winds. Okay then, HEARTCHIMERA. Oh, and by the way, DISASTERFORENGLAND, that spells disaster for England. Glastonbury, Temple of Abandon. What's that then? That's the god of the sea, that is. Ah, that's better. Thoughtseize. Anonymously owned hookers, unknown tours. S. Voyage's End. Don't die. Warrior's Lesson. Now, what is it about Lindsay Lohan and Britney Spears? Seriously, who do these women think they are? Partying, drinking, binging, being in the gossip columns. It makes me sick. Sorry, wild celeb rants. I spent $1,000 on camping equipment once. They said it would be dry and easy to assemble. I couldn't put it up. When I did, I got soaked. It was a poor tender betrayal. 50 Shades protagonist working for a notable computer manufacturer selling donkeys. Grey, Merchant of Ass, Fidel. At dealing 2 damage, a Shocks adept. That'll be $20 for the set, please. Charging Badger. Arc, culling Mark. Single paddle instead. Drownings, all row. I used to loathe Coronation Street, but now it's perfectly acceptable. Ex-Corrie hate. TAEF, Fate, Unraveller. I'm opening a gardening company on Theros. Do you know why? It's because there are so many forlorn Tsunamas. Azorius, Guild. 4 black, mythic rare from Avacyn restored in a pink dress. That's definitely a grisly transformation. Daily stipend. For food and lodging on Theros, heroes per diem. There he is, Oracle's Insight. Come on, boys, tango with me. Plea for guy dance. Lightningish won't, thunderous might. A lot. That's the weight of the underworld. Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I believe in a thing God love. Just listen to the rhythm of my heart. Do you think I could get cast into darkness? Are you finding this enchanting? You day aside. Ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Flurry of horns. Crap British newspaper in the 1970s. Grim Guardian. Armalite rifle. Font of ire. Sybil Green. Font of fertility. Anyone who live who isn't humbler of mortals. Finally, look, Dad. Crewfix's Insight. Magma's Prey. I didn't even know Magmas were religious. Hey, these are totally coming together. Look, man, a confluence. This segment, Nightmarish End. Shall I do these jokes again? Shall I, Marshall? I guess you want me to reprise all. Life in the Fast Lane. Rise of Eagles. Hey, Al, it's nearly 10 o'clock. Get up. Rouse the mob. Is that a mare? No, that's a sire, that is. What you're having right now? Tormented thoughts. I went to a Bavarian sausage festival once. They were sold out. It was my worst fears. Why are cereals so complicated? You got baffling barley, weird wheat, mystifying maize. All right, we're almost done. It's time for the expansion gags. Feet, leg ends. You've never seen me rage, have you, Marshall? No. Chill about losing your wheels. Zen, decar. We can put lust, greed or gluttony back in your life, so why not have a sin restored? What you used to see the sky? Weatherlight. My friend Ian, he says, Homelands was awesome. Homelands was awesome. Homelands was awesome. Honestly, it's all Ian says. Urza Cook's on. Urza Zaga. You can't name me brother, so you certainly can't name me sis. The sound of 7 years bad luck. Mirrored all the good flavour. Law. Wind. Wave to the ocean. Morning tide. What are those artefact vehicles then? Scars are mirrored they are. Never mind to gods and to monsters. This is set to heroes. Can't attack here? I thought you came from Urza and Baron. All right, it's time for the encore. Now, Santa Claus, he was riding through the sky with his reindeer on Christmas Eve. Suddenly there was a tremendous thunderstorm. He fell out the sky. The next morning someone found him. He was soaked through. The reindeer was soaked through. The sleigh was soaked through. The ground was soaked through. But his giant red sack of presents for all the girls and boys. Oh, yes, not a drop of water anywhere near it. Yes, really, I'm in it. The headline the next day, sack, red, found dry. More, give us more, Rich. Okay, Marshall, well, I do have one to close. So I was at a GP recently. I couldn't believe it because I like to read at night. There was no bedside light. I rang reception. I said, there's no bedside light. They said, we know. I said, why not? They said, it's because of a new law that says hotels aren't allowed to supply bedside lights. But I was welcome to bring my own. This is ridiculous. I go upstairs. I put the TV on. I've got no bedside light after all. On comes this commercial, or as we say in Britain, an ad, with this little cartoon character basically saying, we can't give you a bedside light, so don't forget to pack one. That was the gist. So I fall asleep with the TV on. I keep waking up. There's this stupid cartoon character with this, we can't give you a bedside light, so don't forget to pack one. It drove me nuts. I must have seen that thing 30 times. I've stopped watching TV now. I can't bear the thought of it. Honestly, Marshall, it's reached the point where I've just started to dread. Bring a lamp. Ads. You've been listening to Stand Up Magic with me, your host, Rich Hagan. And remember, kids, Marshall made me do it. Bye.